Drinking alcohol, smoking, and drug use are harmful to health.
I've never been one for ghost stories or urban legends. Growing up in the sleepy town of Elmwood, Pennsylvania, where the Susquehanna River wound lazily through rolling hills dotted with fading barns and forgotten silos, my idea of excitement was far more grounded. Elmwood was the kind of place where time moved slow. Kids rode bikes until dusk, old folks swapped tales on porches, and the only real danger was the occasional drunk driver on Route 6. But for me and my high school crew, the real thrills came from what we euphemistically called exploring. We'd scout out abandoned spots, the crumbling ruins of the old textile mill by the river, where rusted machinery loomed like skeletal giants, the derelict farmhouses on the outskirts, their roofs caving in under decades of neglect, even the occasional boarded-up church that whispered of scandals long buried. It was all trespassing, plain and simple. We'd climb over chain-link fences pocked with rust, pry open windows with screwdrivers swiped from our dad's toolboxes, and slip into these time capsules of decay. The adrenaline was addictive, the creak of floorboards underfoot, the beam of a flashlight piercing the gloom, revealing relics like yellowed newspapers from the 70s or moldy photo albums of families who'd long since moved on or passed away. Most nights, it was harmless. We'd find stashes of old beer bottles from previous intruders, tag walls with spray paint, nothing too destructive, we told ourselves, and scare each other with fake ghost noises. Once, a raccoon burst out of a closet, sending us scrambling in hysterics. Another time, we stumbled upon a nest of bats in an attic, their wings fluttering like dark omens. But those were just stories we laughed about later, over burgers at the local diner. That all changed one sweltering summer night in 2012. I was 22 then, drifting aimlessly after scraping through community college with a degree in general studies that felt as useless as a screen door on a submarine. I bounced between jobs, mowing lawns for cranky retirees, delivering pizzas to the same handful of addresses, anything to keep gas in my rusted '98 Ford pickup and beer in the fridge. My best friend Mark was the polar opposite, energetic, always scheming, with a mop of unruly brown hair and a grin that could charm anyone. We'd been inseparable since middle school, bonded over video games and our shared love of pushing boundaries. Mark was the one who turned our casual trespassing into a full-blown hobby. He called it urbex, urban exploration, and treated it like a sport. He had an app on his phone loaded with GPS pins, shuttered warehouses in Scranton, an abandoned amusement park near Allentown, even the infamous Pennhurst Asylum, a few hours south, though we'd never mustered the guts to hit that one. One humid evening in late July, we were lounging at our usual spot, a dingy pizza joint called Gino's, with its flickering neon sign and greasy slices that hit the spot after a long day. Mark was scrolling through his phone, his eyes lighting up like he'd struck gold. "Dude, check this out," he said, sliding the device across the table. On the screen was a grainy photo of a decrepit Victorian house, its turret sagging like a weary sentinel. The old Whitaker place, been vacant since the 80s. Family up and vanished one night, no trace. It's like they were erased. I took a swig of my soda, skeptical but intrigued. Mark had a knack for hyping up spots, but this one sounded different. He pulled up a slew of tabs, old newspaper scans from the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, forum threads on sites like ForgottenPA.com, and Reddit's Ayurshaj abandoned places. The Whitakers were a textbook reclusive family. Elias Whitaker, the father, worked the coal mines in nearby Harlan's Gap, a dying town that had once thrived on anthracite, but now was little more than a cluster of shuttered stores and crumbling homes. His wife, Margaret, stayed home with their 2 kids, Sarah, 10, and little Tommy, just 6. They kept to themselves, rarely seen at church or town events. Neighbors whispered about Elias's temper, fueled by the bottle after long shifts underground, but nothing concrete. Then, on a stormy night in October 1987, it all went to hell. A neighbor, old Mrs. Hargrove, called the cops after hearing blood-curdling screams echoing from the house. Like someone was being torn apart, she told reporters. Police arrived within the hour, but the place was locked tight, doors bolted from the inside, windows latched. They forced entry and found nothing. No bodies, no blood. Just the remnants of a half-eaten dinner on the kitchen table. Pot roast cooling, mashed potatoes congealing, glasses of milk untouched. Upstairs, beds were unmade, toys scattered as if the kids had been playing moments before. The family Bible was left open on the table, a verse marked in red. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire. Police searched for months, but found nothing. Some blamed debt, others a cult, or even aliens. By 1989, the case was cold, and the house was abandoned. Thrill seekers told strange stories: icy hands in the basement, whispers in the walls, and an old rotary phone that rang at midnight, always with a voice crying for help. Bullshit, I scoffed, pushing the phone back. Probably kids pranking each other, or bats in the wiring. But Mark's eyes gleamed with that manic excitement. Come on, Alex. It's only 40 miles out. We've done sketchier. Imagine the story. We wait till midnight, record the call if it happens. It'll blow up on YouTube. I hesitated. The rational part of me screamed, no. Trespassing fines were steep, and Harlan's Gap was in a rough county where cops didn't take kindly to outsiders. But the thrill, that old familiar pull, won out. We geared up that night. Heavy-duty flashlights, crowbars for just in case, a digital recorder Mark borrowed from his cousin, and a 6-pack of Pabst to steady the nerves. We hit the road around 10 p.m., the truck's headlights cutting through the thickening fog. The drive to Harlan's Gap was a descent into desolation. Elmwood gave way to winding back roads, flanked by dense forests, the kind where deer eyes glowed like embers in the beams. We passed through tiny hamlets, gas stations with flickering pumps, diners closed for the night, billboards faded and peeling. Harlan's Gap itself was a relic, once a bustling coal hub in the early 1900s, now a skeleton town. Main Street was a parade of boarded-up facades. The old movie theater with its marquee frozen on, closed indefinitely. A hardware store with shattered windows. Weeds pushing through cracked sidewalks. Streetlights buzzed sporadically, casting long shadows that danced like specters. Rumors said the mines beneath had collapsed in places, swallowing homes whole, but that was probably exaggeration. The Whitaker house loomed at the end of a rutted dirt road, about 2 miles outside town. Twisted oaks lined the path, their branches clawing at the sky, blocking the moon's pale glow. We parked in a pull-off hidden by overgrowth, killed the engine, and sat in silence for a moment, listening to the night's hush. No cars, no distant trains, just the faint rustle of leaves. Ready? Mark whispered, slinging his backpack. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. We hopped the fence easily. The chain link was bent and sagging from years of similar violations. The yard was a jungle. Waist-high weeds, thorn bushes that snagged our jeans, remnants of a picket fence, now splintered teeth. The house itself was a Gothic monstrosity, straight out of a nightmare. 2 stories tall, with a steeply pitched roof and a turret that leaned precariously, its paint peeled to reveal rotting wood beneath. Windows gaped like hollow eyes, some shattered, others veiled in tattered curtains that billowed faintly, though there was no wind. The porch sagged underfoot as we approached, boards groaning in protest. Mark worked the back door, a weathered slab with a rusted knob. The crowbar made short work of it, popping the lock with a metallic snap that echoed too loudly in the stillness. We slipped inside, flashlights sweeping the interior. The air assaulted us immediately, a cloying mix of mildew, dust, and something sharper, like rotting vegetation, or worse. It clung to our clothes, seeped into our pores. We were in the kitchen first, a snapshot frozen in 1987. Linoleum floors curled at the edges, cabinets hung ajar, revealing canned goods swollen with age. The sink held plates encrusted with what might have been gravy, now a petrified crust. A calendar on the wall still showed October 1987, with days crossed off up to the 15th, the night they vanished. Mark whistled low. "Time warp, man." I shone my light on the table. 4 place settings, utensils scattered as if dropped mid-meal. A child's drawing lay nearby, a crude family portrait in crayon, the figures smiling obliviously. We moved to the living room, our boots crunching on debris, fallen plaster, broken glass from vandals, floral wallpaper peeled in strips, revealing water-stained plaster beneath. A massive console TV dominated one wall, its screen cracked, rabbit ears bent. Furniture was draped in sheets, yellowed with age, like ghosts in waiting. And there, on a spindly end table, sat the phone. Black rotary, antique, its cord frayed and severed midway, dangling uselessly. No wall jack in sight. It was utterly disconnected. Mark poked it with his finger. "This is it, the star of the show." We laughed nervously, but the sound died quickly in the oppressive quiet. Upstairs beckoned via a creaking staircase, banister sticky with grime. The master bedroom was sparse, a brass bed frame sagging, mattress moldy and torn. Dresser drawers yawned open, clothes spilled out, floral dresses, work shirts stiff with coal dust. In the kids' room, the unease deepened. Bunk beds with faded superhero sheets, toys strewn about. A teddy bear missing an arm, a doll with porcelain face cracked, one glass eye staring blankly from the floor. Posters of 80s icons, Michael Jackson, Madonna, curled at the edges. Tommy's name was scrawled in marker on the wall, surrounded by stick figure drawings of monsters with gaping mouths. The bathroom was a horror. Tub ringed with black mold, mirror shattered into a spiderweb pattern. Mark snapped photos relentlessly, his phone's flash popping like gunfire. "This place is a gem," he whispered. But I felt uneasy, a chill on my neck like someone watching from the dark. We checked the basement last, a small door off the kitchen opening to stone steps wet with moisture. Down there, the air was colder, denser, with a sharp smell of soil. Shelves lined the walls, jars of preserved food split open, contents turned to sludge. An old coal furnace loomed in the corner, pipes corroded. Mark aimed his flashlight at a far nook and stopped. "What's that?" Mark scarred the walls, deep scratches, like claws digging into concrete. On the floor, faint chalk outlines, as if someone had traced spots for corpses. We hurried upstairs, pulses racing. It was 11:15 now. We settled in the living room, leaning against the wall, opening beers to steady, shaky nerves. Mark placed the recorder on the table, pointed at the phone. We traded tales to pass time, old adventures, like when we got chased by a farmer's dog at a silo, or the mill where we found a pile of old magazines. But as 11:30 neared, the house fell eerily quiet. No creaks, no distant birds, just our breaths, short and fast. At 11:45, the first oddity struck. A soft scraping from upstairs, like nails on wood. We shrugged it off as mice, then a thud, like something dropped. "Just the wind?" I offered, but the air was still. Mark glanced at his watch. Almost time. The air grew heavy, tense with expectation. My watch chirped faintly at midnight. The phone rang. That sound, sharp, jarring, impossible, cut through the stillness. It echoed through the house, buzzing in my chest. We stared, paralyzed. Ring, ring. The cord hung loose. No power, no line. "My God," Mark muttered. On the fourth ring, he grabbed the receiver, hand shaking. "Hello?" His face went pale, eyes wide. He listened for seconds that felt endless, then thrust it at me. "Take it. Hear it." The plastic was ice cold, unnaturally so. I pressed it to my ear. Static hissed, like wind through a storm. Then the voice, frail, feminine, laced with terror. "Help me, please. They're here, in the house. The door's locked. I can't get out." Sobs racked the line. "The children. Sarah, Tommy. Oh God, they're taking them. Intruders. Help." It faded into gurgles, then click. Dead air. We dropped the handset, scrambling back. "What was that?" Mark yelped. The phone clattered, cord swinging. I babbled rationalizations, pre-recorded tape, hidden speaker, but my mind reeled. The voice had mentioned intruders. Us? Panic surged. Footsteps pounded overhead, heavy boots stomping across the floorboards. Then laughter, a child's giggle, distorted, echoing from the walls. Not joyful, mocking, sinister. We grabbed our gear, bolted for the back door. It wouldn't budge, handle turning futilely, as if barred from outside. "Kick it!" I shouted. Mark rammed his shoulder, wood splintering but holding. Upstairs, doors slammed one by one. Shadows flickered in the hallway, tall, elongated forms slithering across the walls, not ours. A whisper slithered through the air. Trespassers. Desperation took over. I smashed a window with the crowbar, glass exploding outward. We dove through, shards slicing our arms, tumbling into the yard. Thorns ripped fabric and skin as we sprinted, flashlights bobbing wildly. Behind, the house awoke, windows rattling, shutters banging, that infernal phone ringing again, pursuing us like a siren. We vaulted the fence, piled into the truck. Tires spun gravel as we fled, Harlan's Gap blurring past. Back in Elmwood, we collapsed at Mark's apartment, bandaging cuts, downing whiskey to steady shakes. "Ghosts," Mark muttered. "The family's trapped, reliving it." I wanted to agree, but skepticism clung. The next day, hungover and sore, I dove deeper online. Forums buzzed with Whitaker lore, a 1998 post on an old BBS site. A group heard the phone, voice pleading about shadow men dragging them away. In 2005, urbexers reported doors locking, shadows chasing. One claimed a friend vanished after, car found at the house like a beacon, the week blurred in paranoia. I jumped at phone rings, avoided dark rooms. Mark deteriorated fast, bags under eyes, twitching at shadows. He'd mumble about dreams, the Whitaker kids playing, then screaming as figures emerged from walls. Thursday, he called at 2 a.m. "It's ringing in my head, Alex. Make it stop." I talked him down. But Friday, he was a wreck. Pale, unshaven, apartment trashed. Midnight Saturday, my phone buzzed. Mark, hysterical. "It's them. My landline, ringing." I raced over. He huddled in the corner, cell smashed, but the old wall phone, Disconnected for years, trilled incessantly. I answered, dread coiling. They found the truck, but not Mark. They found my prints on the key, but not the shape of his face. They asked the neat, polite questions: argument, substance, runaway. And I answered like a person rehearsing a lie, until my mouth wore thin. I moved cities the way you move a bruise. Cover it, press, pretend it's gone. At night, the phone remembers. It wakes me. Flash of blue on the bedside table. An unknown number with the weight of a pocket full of keys. Once I answered and heard him through the static, thinner than memory. "Alex," he said, like he had drifted through a wall. "Help, they're inside." After that, I learned small rules. Never go back to the places that look like they once belonged to people. Never pick up when the line is cold. Never whisper Harlan's name aloud. The cops can write their neat reports. Therapists can stitch labels into my chart. But labels don't close the gaps. Sometimes late, when the house settles wrong and the radiator ticks like teeth, I let the phone ring and count the rings until even the sound is a stranger. Then I put it face down and sleep with my palms over my ears, because some pleas are invitations, and some doors, once opened, will not let you leave.